Welcome to Fashion Reverie. I'm Tiana Ibrahimovic.
And I am Cicely Daniels.
Fashion Reverie takes you from the front lines of fashion to the front row.
All of Fashion Reverie Talk segments are based on published content found on fashionreverie.com.
So remember, if you want more information on the segments, go to fashionreverie.com.
In this episode, we are so happy to have American footwear designer Ruthie Davis, and we are joined by Fashion Reverie associate editor Kristopher Fraser, who will discuss his article Silent but Deadly: Fashion Designers on the Rise. But let's start with our fashion news. All of our news segments again are based on the fashion news alert found on fashionreverie.com.
Okay, so let's jump into the current events in fashion. I'm going to start off with Mara Hoffman shutting down her fashion brand. She is known for her sustainable fashion brand, called Mara Hoffman, and she launched her namesake brand in 2004. So she focused on sustainability, and she's known for a lot of celebrities wearing her clothes that included Beyonce, Kim and Kourtney Kardashian, Kendall Jenner, Paris Hilton, and so many more. But after more than 20 years, in a recent interview for Vogue, Hoffman expressed her gratitude to the fashion industry and announced that she's sort of past parting ways with the industry, at least for now. You never know what happens, right? So to quote her, she mentioned that she's deeply humbled to have been given the gift to play a role that allows me to create beauty and then have it live in the world in such a meaningful way. So she expressed her gratitude for working with so many people and for all the support. And yeah, so we'll see, I guess, what's next for her.
Well, definitely a contribution that was, appreciated and, will at least stand whatever is next, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
in my news, I am talking about Timothée Chalamet's new job. So Chanel has given Chalamet his first campaign with its fragrance Bleu de Chanel as its new brand ambassador. And obviously, we know of him as a big, enormous movie star. And so Chanel has chosen Martin Scorsese to direct a short film that is going to follow Chalamet through the day and waking up in Soho. And this is the short film that is going to like correspond with this campaign. And it didn't want the short film to look like an ad, so it's reflecting the actor's conflict with being a celebrity and also finding a way to stay true to himself. And he felt that working with Scorsese was an amazing opportunity for him to learn. And it is a perfume ad, but he said he looks at it as an enormous education. So obviously, he's a top tier actor working with a top tier director. And, it'll be probably an interesting film, not just perfume ad. And obviously for Timothée Chalamet fans and Chanel fans, people might also be excited about the new fragrance.
I'm excited to see it. I mean, I love it when an ad is not an ad, when it's actually like a little mini movie. And I don't know, for some reason, I'm expecting black and white romance like clips.
I think some like curly lock. If we get a little curly locks, I think a lot of people will be excited about the
Yes, exactly. Well, continuing the fashion news. So we all know Nordstrom stores and Nordstrom Rack as well. Unfortunately, Bruce Nordstrom, heir to one of the largest American retail stores, has died. He really helped transform the family business from a regional footwear store to a large American retail empire. And in 1963, he began to run the company his grandfather founded. And he made some significant changes, like he would foster customer loyalty in a friendly environment. So he added live music, played on a baby grand piano instead of the regular like elevator music in the background. And he also made changing rooms larger and added more customer care. So he did change the industry, especially when he took over. So let's see where the company continues. But yeah, that's a little bit of a sad news. But when he retired from the department store, the Nordstrom had 8.6 billion in revenue generated by full line stores and Nordstrom Rack, which is the discount site.
Well, I mean, obviously, that's also a tremendous contribution to the world of fashion, and everyone knows Nordstrom's, and still they have great brand selection. Like it's an important store for the fashion industry, and we celebrate his life and his contribution.
Yes.
And that, I think, is the end of our fashion news alert for this week. But of course, if you want to keep up to date on what's going on in fashion, go to fashionreverie.com. So, for anyone who knows me, they know that I love footwear. I love a fabulous shoe. I think that it can make or break an outfit, but it also can imbue everyone wearing a fabulous shoe with an amazing sense of confidence. I am so thrilled to be able to introduce a fashion icon, a designer of footwear who really made her own path in fashion and also is not afraid to bring bold, confident, sexy shoes to women and people who want to wear a heel or a fabulous shoe. So I'm so excited to introduce Ruthie Davis. Welcome, Ruthie.
Hi, so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, such an honor. Look at you. Look at your background already. Stunning. just just already you look stunning, your background looks stunning. It's such a pleasure to have you here. You had such an interesting path to becoming a designer, right? It wasn't, I'd say, just the straightforward, you woke up and you were like, I'm going to design footwear. So tell me a little bit about it. I know that you majored in English and visual arts in college, but what was your path, to choose to work in the fashion industry?
Okay, well, it actually really makes sense when you break it down because I've always, like you, loved fashion and was always obsessed with footwear. And I think I originally became obsessed with footwear because I was the youngest of six children and I was the shortest, smallest. And when my sisters, I'm old, so in the 70s, they bought me a pair of baby platforms, and all of a sudden I could see eye to eye with I was like, oh my God, I'm never looking back. So at a young
Yeah.
age, I realized that added height gave you that power in taking up more space in the room, which I
Mhm.
love. And as far as like my studying, so I always drew, I like to draw things. I always did, I have pictures from high school. I used to draw shoes, but I had no idea, I didn't connect the dots, I could be a shoe designer. And then I went to liberal arts college, which, you study more the big picture, fine arts, visual arts. So I did a lot of watercolor and photography, both of which I do now in my brand. And English. So, I mean, learning how to write, how to communicate is obviously very helpful when you have a brand. So
Mhm.
I really never came at it from the angle of I want to be a designer. It was more like I ended up getting an MBA in entrepreneurship because I knew I wanted to run a small business. And so from there, it was more, I went in sort of the product side, my first job at Reebok. I didn't come in as a designer. I came in as a associate product manager and just sort of worked my way into being VP of design. my next job at Uggs, I was VP of design and marketing. And then
Hmm.
Tommy Hilfiger, I was always marketing and design because I like where those two things come together. I'm not a designer sitting on a river, sketching a beautiful shoe. Isn't this incredible? Like a Manolo Blahnik, like they're incredible, and I don't pretend to be that. I'm more of a problem solver. I'm like, what are the trends? What looks cool? What is she wearing? How do I fix that problem? And I put it together. And so it's more like product line management and being creative within that space. So
Yeah.
really all of my education tools come into play because I really feel like I'm more of a brand person than a designer, if that makes sense. Because I do where marketing design collide and create an explosion. Like that's what excites me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure in part that has helped to spur your success because you, like you said, you identified the trends. You want to see what people are looking for, what needs you feel like you can fill. And I think that's really amazing about you is you haven't just had one type of footwear. You've had a lot, you've explored a lot of different types, and then you kind of got into your zone that you feel like, at least currently, what you would
Yes.
say, right? And I think that having that kind of business acumen is probably goes in line with your creativity to help bring both of those elements together so successfully. So I think that's amazing. Now, I don't know why this is, because obviously I can't say that women buy the most shoes, but we know that female women and or people who are female identifying are the biggest buyers, let's say, of a high heel. And yet when you look at the designers, it's, I don't know what percentage of men, but it's a lot of men and very few, sitting at the helm as the female designer. Can you talk about that phenomenon and why you think that is? And also just the idea of sexy shoes designed by men. What do you think about that? And,
Yeah, it's
you
a
know,
really interesting topic. First of all, first and foremost, I don't design as a woman designing for women who wears the shoes. I never design a shoe to make a woman look sexy for a man. First and foremost, I design shoes to empower the wearer, the female or the person identifying as female. I am empowering them to feel good. Part of it is, we talk about all this stuff. People do Botox, they do this, they do that. Let's be honest, if you're a little taller, your clothes look better. Who doesn't want to be a little taller? Like part of it is it's just a functional, like they make you taller, you have more space in the room because women historically, are shorter than men, okay? If you had to do an average. So it's like you're going to see eye to eye with the guys. It's more about empowerment than looking sexy. But
mhm,
with that said, I think a lot of females that I notice, they aren't comfortable with doing super sexy stuff. And I
mhm,
feel like for some reason men are more comfortable with that. And I think the reason I'm comfortable with it is because I come at it from a very wholesome, sporty way. Like I said, my roots were at Reebok and Uggs, and I was an athlete, and I loved my sports outfit, my ski suits, my tennis outfits, and my original love of footwear was like, the hookups of like my tennis shoes and my tennis dress and the little ribbon in my hair. So fashion sport was my lane, and I've always, how like an athlete, like you see the Olympic runners and they're or like track runners and they have like they're basically wearing what Beyonce wears on stage. Okay.
yes, yes, because
You know
they're
what
the
I'm saying?
Beyoncés of their field.
Yeah, they're wearing like a leotard and it's like super hot and flashy and sexy. And, you
Yeah,
know, so I come at sexy from the sporty way. So it's a
yeah,
lot more wholesome. It's kind of like coming out and being like, I feel good about myself. Like I'm, a tennis player. I'm Venus. I'm Serena, like it's that aspect. So I feel like I'm comfortable with the sexy. It's like, why not show yourself in your full glory as a woman?
yeah,
Feel good about it, own it, and love it,
yeah.
whatever that looks like. And that's where I always say anybody who loves my shoes is a friend of mine, you know. However, some people wear them in a very sexy way. Some people wear them in a really like high fashion way. Some people wear them in a preppy way. You know, it's up to you.
What I love is the element of fun. And so you can choose a shoe it's from your collections and choose a color if it's highlighted or if it's even a little subdued, like that little surprise if you were wearing something longer and it just popped out, right? But that would let you know that the wearer had that sense of fun and confidence and was feeling bold. And I love what you said just about empowerment, that it's not about that you're not designing so that someone is looking good for someone else, but so that they are feeling good in and of themselves, right? Feeling their own power. And I think that's fantastic and something that all wearers of heels can relate to.
100%.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about your inspiration, which is having this color, this sexy, this fun, and the your athletic side or
Yeah.
your background, you know what I mean? What continues to inspire you in that way, keeping it fresh?
Yeah, that's great. I luckily I'm like a kid in a candy store. I still am super pumped up about. I'm a consumer, so I'm always trying new things myself. I love fashion myself. I love branding. I love analyzing, and trying new things. So it just seeing people living in New York City. I look at the outfits on the street. I'm a big inspiration from the streets girl. Like I look at the girls on the street, the young girls, you walk in different neighborhoods. I'm like taking notes, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's what inspires me. And I think, the other thing that always inspires me, especially in New York City, but is I like skyscrapers. I've always loved architecture, and it comes back to the shoe because I think of the shoe as becoming part of the woman's body. It's part of her architecture. She stands prouder and taller. And there's, you see these incredible modern, sleek buildings. And that always gives me, I'm always like, I need to recreate that in a shoe, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's something that I'm always going to love. Mid-century modern architecture is my favorite.
Yeah. Now, you had a collaboration with Disney that went on for several years. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration and what you think were some of the highlights from that work?
It was such a great collaboration, and we ended up winning Collaboration of the Year at the American Image Awards. They loved it, I loved it. It was a perfect fit. It really came about through a connection, and I had made products for someone that recommended me to them, and the people at Disney were like, when they heard my story, they were like, "Oh my God, you're like a real live Disney princess going after her dreams. It could be a new princess, the cobbler. I could be the
Yeah.
cobbler princess,
Yeah.
making little shoes. So they were like, we love this idea of like an American princess making the princess shoes for us. So it was a really great, inspiring thing. And I also came at it from the same angle of empowerment, not seeing the Disney princesses in a way of the olden days,
Mhm.
much more modern in my viewpoint of it. So we did numerous collections. In fact, just based on what you were just saying, I got to show you one of the shoes behind me here. One of my
Yes, please.
favorites. This is from the Cinderella collection. And,
Okay.
I did this amazing oleographic,
Oh,
shiny,
yes.
sparkly. The bottom is all like, if you can see it,
That's gorgeous.
sparkly, but the message is what makes this Cinderella slipper important.
Hmm.
It says, the shoe fits me. And my whole thought behind this was, I don't want to do a Cinderella slipper that's for this perfect little, foot of Cinderella, this image of what Cinderella is. I'm
Hmm.
going to make a shoe that whoever wants to wear it. You could be 6 feet tall, and whatever you are, whatever size, shape, color, we don't care. This shoe is going to fit you.
I
So
love that.
it
Yes.
represented, total inclusivity. And so I did things like this that were really inspiring and fun. And the whole idea is when you wear this pump and you're sitting at a restaurant, you look down and you remind yourself, God darn it, I'm pretty special. The shoe fits me.
Yes. Yes, I love that. That is fantastic. And it's so inspiring. Your story, and then again, just how you've branched out, how you've had these various moments. What would you say it's like being an independent designer in 2024? Because I know things, change over the years, but how would you describe it now?
Oh, it's very different. In fact, I have a lot to say on that subject. I'm actually, first time ever hearing it here. I'm working on a book. Yep, really exciting stuff. I have a real history of speaking to young designers and students. I'm very involved with different colleges, both business schools and art schools. So I have a whole history of mentoring young designers or people trying to make it as an independent designer. So I have a lot to say on that subject. Now, you started the show about Mara Hoffman. I also read this morning that Dion Lee and the vampire's wife are also both shuttering. And there's a headline in Business of Fashion about, the existential threat to independent designers.
Yes.
And it is really, really hard in 2024 to be a small, an independent fashion brand, not part of a big conglomerate. And so my feeling, the reason I have staying power, I've evolved. I'm constantly changing. That's how I stay relevant, how I stay excited. And I'm constantly restructuring my company. So there were times I had a cool office and employees, and I had showrooms in Milan and in LA. I had PR agents here and there. Now I have a home studio. I call it, it's not a home office, it's an office home. It's more
Okay.
office than home. And I don't have any full-time employees. I only have freelance. So I work with other professionals. And I am only direct to consumer. So I don't have, like in the article, they talk about how the wholesale, which is having issues now, the business in some of these places is affecting these independent designers. So I don't have that problem. So I just sell on ruthiedavis.com. I keep it lean and mean, and I focus product line. As you said earlier, yes, I used to have more sneakers and different heel heights and different things. Really now I have my niche. It's like super high, super colorful, super sexy. That's where there's a hole in the market that I fill. And so I keep it focused, keep it clear. And I'm excited because I like to do what's new, whatever the new, I'm big on TikTok. I'm big on all the platforms. I have a lot of social, so I'm always trying the new thing. And that's how I survive. I'm scrappy. I'm never going to be that person who's like, oh, look at me, I'm so fabulous and wealthy and successful. No, I'm going to be the scrappy, real one that says, if you want to be profitable and make it, you got to cut all this out and you got to do it yourself. You got to get that iPhone and do your own content. You got to work hard for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I think there's a lot of great opportunities, and people can read about how to do it in my upcoming book.
Come on, Ruthie. First of all, we got this sneak preview, viewers, which is so exciting. So we know one of the things that's next. Is there anything else next that you want to mention, before we finish our wonderful interview about what's coming up for you?
Okay, I have one more super juicy thing.
Yes.
So, a lot of people say, oh my God, your shoes are too high. I could never wear them. Can you do a lower heel? Can you do a lower heel? And of course, I've done lower heels and they don't sell. Okay. And those people that tell me to do them, I'm like, are you going to buy a shoe? And they don't buy the shoe. But in any event, so one of the things I'm doing for the next collection is I've decided, even though my shoes are quite high, as you can see behind me, I'm going to go higher. So I have a 7-inch heel coming out. So if 6-inch wasn't high enough, girl, you got your 7-incher coming.
Okay, viewers, we're getting the tea right here. We've just learned it's
Getting
going
the
to be a
tea.
7-inch heel.
Yep, yep, I'm going higher, taking it up a notch.
I love it. Well, this has been amazing, wonderful, inspiring for all of those aspiring designers. I hope that you were able to get some information and knowledge. I know that I was, and it was just such an honor to meet you and speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, Ruthie.
Thank you, and I loved your questions and your energy. So back at you. Let's keep it
Oh,
fun. Keep it fun.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, come back and see us another time.
I will. Ciao, ciao.
Oh, Ruthie and Cicely, what a great interview that was. I love the higher heel. It always makes you look skinnier too. But now on to the next topic and to our fashion expert, Kristopher Fraser. He wrote an article on Fashion Reverie about silent but deadly fashion designers, brands on the rise. So between all the household names that we all know, there are young, independent designers and brands that help give the fashion industry a fresh and unexpected spirit. So the new blood of designers might not be the big names now, but we are following their progress. And who's the best person to talk to about this? Kristopher. Hi, Kristopher.
Hey, Tiana.
Good to see you. I love the
I see you
article.
too.
I
Thank you,
can't wait to
dear.
hear why you picked those that you featured in your article. So let's touch upon just a few to give the viewers a little bit of a preview of your article. Um,
So
Platform
some
is
of the
yours.
designers I discussed were Cuccicelli Shaheen. It's a duo. They used to be at Roberto Cavalli, and now they've went on to start their own very like glamorous evening and cocktail wear line. It's a lot of embellishments, a lot of bejewels, a lot of dresses. Then there's Atelier Killian, which is a menswear brand. Um, the brand recently dressed Jean Baptiste for one of his performances at Coachella, and Wiederhoff, which is considered demi couture, big rising designer in the New York market, very beloved by editors, stylists alike, and also does bridal as well. So he's coming at the fashion industry from two very different segments, arguably several, because he has his custom design business, his more like costumey demi couture pieces, and the bridal. And then there's Saga Boy, which is a Caribbean inspired brand that's actually found a lot of ground in Milan. They recently showed at Milan Fashion Week and have been really
Mhm.
finding a customer base in Italy.
Well, that's great. So tell me, how do you select, how can you tell that some of these designers are sort of, on the rise and people will notice them?
When I was curating this list, what I was looking for was designers that have at least been at some of the fashion weeks for more than several seasons, in addition to designers I know that have formed a strong, what I'd like to call a cult following. Like even though they may not be household names, they definitely have a customer base. There's definitely people looking at them. The stylists are loving them, the editors are loving them. They've got their own niche of people following their brands that want the next best thing, that have them in demand, and they're doing more direct to consumer and custom right now, which harkens back to the conversation that Cicely and Ruthie were having earlier about what it takes to last as an independent designer in this business. And you see these designers keeping their businesses more lean and mean, but finding ways to really reach their audience or connecting with their audience, whether it's their runway shows to impress their editors and stylists who keep pulling their clothes to get their names out there, or continue doing custom pieces for some of these people don't realize the power of custom design nowadays. Like there are designers I know that are really making it just off having strong custom clientele bases.
And so, okay, because they're new and I'm not super familiar, I will need help pronouncing these brands. So, which out of each brand that you mentioned today, how would you describe their style and what type of consumer or client or even celebrity do you see them dress?
They're definitely more luxury focused, which is really interesting in such a challenging luxury market right now. But luxury seems one of the safer spaces for designers if you're not trying to do the fast fashion thing. Because to be honest, right now, what we're seeing is it's a have or have not situation when it comes to fashion. It's either the very inexpensive fast fashion brands or people are going for the super luxury. You don't see a lot of in the middle. So that contemporary price point, it's those type of designers are having a little bit more of a struggle as we
Mhm.
see how brands like Mara Hoffman, Dion Lee, unfortunately just went out of business. But these designers at the higher end of things that have those four-figure price tags for their clothes, they're finding a way to make their brand survive. And those customers spending those really top dollar on garments, they're still shopping. Those people will probably never stop shopping. And those are probably the kind of people with money that will never run out.
So some of these designers, some are for men, some are for women, but we know that currently a lot of fashion is kind of fluid. So if you can take me through each of the four that you mentioned
Of
and
course.
tell me how do you see them progress?
Kukucheli Shahin's definitely more of a traditional luxury brand in the sense of women's evening wear and cocktail. Again, a lot of the gowns, bedazzlements, embellishments, very focused on that high-end women's evening wear customer. But they also, funny enough, have a very strong base among America's drag queens. I have attended their New York Fashion Week show before, and several of the past season contestants from RuPaul's Drag Race were in the front row in their dresses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then Atelier Killian's definitely more traditional luxury menswear. They have a very strong menswear customer base among those high dollar spenders, and you do see celebrities like Jean Baptiste wearing them, and they focus more on, that like A-list celebrity clientele. Wiederhoft is also with their demi couture. There's also more supposed to be traditional women's wear, but a lot of their more like demi couture pieces you do see on people that experiment more with gender fluid fashion, and you do see drag queens wearing their clothes as well. Saga Boy is a very Caribbean inspired brand, so they aim for those like high dollar Caribbean and African customers who want the colorful clothes, the patterns, that very like resort meets Milan type street style aesthetic.
How do you think luxury changed in fashion in the past couple of years, or let's say post-pandemic?
Oh, Tiana, you want to open that can of worms? Let me be nice and focus on the independent designers. But you don't see among the conglomerates, there's not as much competition among designers for who wants to outdo the best in artistic sense anymore, because a lot of those brands are owned by one of either two companies. So when it comes to luxury for the independent designers, that's where you see more of the push for these demi couture pieces like Wiederhoff is doing, and challenging what luxury menswear means, like Atelier Killian's doing. So you see that divide between the independent designers being the ones to push the boundaries a little more in the luxury market versus a lot of the big household name brands, which really seem to be more designing to just sell clothes.
Hmm. And how important is it for these designers? Because some of them worked for big fashion houses prior to establishing their own brand. How important it is for them to have that experience? Does it make it better, or do you think that affects their unique style?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily a matter of it making them better, but I think it is important to, there's an advantage to cutting your teeth at those bigger fashion houses and seeing how those gears turn and how to make that type of machine work, even if you're trying to start your own brand. And obviously as an independent designer, you're going to be doing that on a much smaller scale, trying to build your own institution and get those gears turning and figuring out what the clogs are. But I don't think it's so much of a necessity for them to do that. Like I'm of the belief either you know fashion or you don't. And you can gain skills from the experience of working for a bigger house, but ultimately you also need your own artistic eye to be able to cultivate a brand that people want. And that can't be taught. That's a natural talent.
Amazing. Well, Kristopher indeed knows fashion. So thank you so much for, kind of keeping an eye on upcoming designers that we should look out for. And the rest of the article you can read on fashionreverie.com. Thank you, Kristopher.
Thanks, Tiana.
Well, viewers, that's it for this episode of Fashion Reverie Talks.
We would like to thank our guests, Ruthie Davis and Fashion Reverie Associate Editor Kristopher Fraser.
For information on these and other stories, go to fashionreverie.com. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.